Thank you for the nice introduction. Hi, good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to present our paper, FaceDiffuser, Speech-Driven 3D Facial Animation Synthesis Using Diffusion. Myself, I'm Kazi Injamamul Haque, and my co-authors, our brilliant student, Stefan who couldn't be here today, and my PhD advisor, Zerrin Yumak. So in this work, we present an end-to-end neural network architecture for generating or synthesizing 3D facial animation. And it is generalizable to both high-dimensional 3D vertex-based dataset as well as low-dimensional parameterized datasets, such as the blend shape-based dataset. So before going into too much of the technical details, I just want to show upfront some animation results. So you can, you would know what's coming next and expect, and I would expect questions about it later on. So let's dive into it.
Every morning I walk towards the edge and throw little things off, like car parts, bottles and cutlery, or whatever I find lying around. It's become a habit, a way to start the day.
Okay, let me give you some background about speech-driven facial animation. So for speech-driven facial animation, for it to be realistic, there are three things that needs to be ensured. So firstly, because it's speech-driven facial animation, proper lip synchronization is a must. Secondly, expressiveness. In other words, you can say the nonverbal cues that reside throughout the face. Thirdly, some randomness. So I would want to motivate the randomness part. So in facial motion generation, so in real life, if you are given a piece of text to utter 20 times, your facial motion will not be the same 20 times. Your mouth movement might be towards the same generation of your motion, but the nonverbal cues that reside throughout your face is not going to be the same 20 times at the frame level per se. So in our work, we try to incorporate this randomness using the diffusion model. Most work focus mainly on the lip synchronization, but a very less care is given towards the latter two, expressiveness and randomness. So for instance, VOCA, which is a very pioneering work on speech-driven facial animation synthesis that employs deep speech to encode the audio and convolutional neural network to decode to vertex displacement. So high-dimensional vertex displacement for facial animation. Next, FaceFormer employs WEF2-VEC2 to encode their audio and a transformer-based decoder, but the animation is not controllable in terms of emotion categories. CodeTalker employs WEF2-VEC2 too, and VQ-VAE method, but it is a two-stage training in which in the first stage they try to learn a prior, and then they use the prior learning in their second stage, which is computationally expensive and complex in terms of the network. FaceXHubert considers the expressiveness by taking into account the controllable emotion category, but in a binary way. But it is a deterministic approach, so the randomness is not there. Given a speech input, it will generate the same results every time. So before going more into details, I really want to make a clear distinction between two categories of speech-driven animation, because it is, at times, when I'm talking with other peers, it comes up and they're talking about diffused head, for example, which is a 2D talking face. So the first one is this 2D talking face or 2D talking heads in literature in some papers. That looks like this. So the animation data that is generated is already rendered. So it's a pixel, it lives in the pixel space, so which cannot be used in 3D applications or interactive 3D applications per se. The second one is the 3D facial animation that can look like this. So basically, the data generated in 3D facial animation can be vertex displacements or blend shapes, but at the end of the day, it's driving a deformable facial mesh. So our work falls under the latter category, so the 3D facial animation. Two most relevant works that I want to highlight, which we took inspiration from to come up with FaceDiffuser. So firstly, it's the FaceXHubert. We took inspiration from FaceXHubert in terms of the end-to-end audio-driven facial animation, but since it is deterministic, what we did is we took inspiration from MDM, which is Human Motion Diffusion Model. If you're familiar with MDM, what it does, it's a text-based human motion generation model. So you give in a text that, a person jumping, it will generate body motion that a person is jumping. So what they used here as a condition is the text. In our case, we implemented the diffusion mechanism that is in MDM into FaceXHubert with some changes, of course. And our condition is not text, but the audio input. So to list down our contribution with this paper, first, to our knowledge, we are the first to incorporate the diffusion mechanism for speech-driven 3D facial animation synthesis task. Our model outperforms the state of the art. On multiple 3D vertex-based mesh animation data sets, we conducted extensive objective analysis, taking into account the objective metrics that we found in literature. And we also did extensive subjective analysis that we did it ourselves on the quality of the generated animations. It is generalizable to lower dimensional blend shape data set as well, or facial control-based data sets. We also introduced a new data set, our in-house data set, Utrecht University, dyadic multimodal motion data set, in short, UU-DAM. We did ablation studies to understand the different components of the network architecture, also to solidify our choices of the final proposed model. We also have a discussion on the non-deterministic and deterministic approaches and why non-deterministic approaches should be looked into further. So, in terms of methodology, so we do two stages of experiments. So we firstly start with vertex-based data set because, we want to compare our model, the results with previous state of the arts that are trained on this vertex-based data set. And when we got better results than the state of the arts that we're comparing with, we extended our, we extended our model with minimal changes for it to work on the lower dimensional data sets. In both the stages, we evaluate our model objectively with quantitative metrics, subjectively, and with perceptual user studies. So, I want to introduce the data sets that we used. So we used 5 data sets that also ensures that the generalizability is there. So firstly, the primary data set was BWI.
And I look forward to sharing that great life with you. Thank you for marrying me.
VOCA set.
Military personnel are expected to obey government orders.
Multiface.
Approach your interview with statuesque composure.
Our in-house data set, DAM.
There isn't really much of a way to debate in reality in these platforms, and you're well aware, at least.
And Beat.
That I find interesting, such as fashion magazines, inspirational books, and the professional books. These books can give me the motivation to.
So the top row, the top 3 data sets are the high-dimensional 3D vertex-based data sets, so it's 4D scans. The bottom 2 are low-dimensional parametrized data. So our in-house data set, it is character-specific Maya control values, and the Beat data set is Apple ARKit blend shape values. So next, let me talk about the training procedure and the model itself. So it is to be noted that the dashed red boxes, these components are only in the vertex-based data sets. These are excluded from the lower dimensional data set. So let's start taking you through the data flow of this model. So FaceDiffuser takes in the audio right here, continuous waveform, and ground truth sequence, but a noised version of the ground truth sequence. So firstly, let's talk about the audio, the input audio right here. So the continuous waveform goes into our audio encoder, which is a pre-trained Hubert model. And at the last layer, the Hubert model produces 50 FPS discrete representation of the continuous audio. With the help of a runtime helper function right here, we align the we adjust the frame rate of the audio so that it matches with the frame rate of the visual representation or the visual data. And we keep this latent representation right here. Later, we take the ground truth sequence x0 and we diffuse it with the help of t. What is this t? The small t is a randomly sampled integer between 0 and capital T. So the capital T is the maximum diffusion steps that is defined during training time. So that randomly sampled integer is corresponding to the level of noise that we add to the ground truth sequence to get the noised diffused sequence per se for the xt. In the case of the vertex-based data set, because it's high dimensional, we introduce a noise encoder right here to reduce the dimensionality of the diffuse sequence. But in case of the lower dimensional, this is not needed. And the time step t also is encoded with a simple multi-layer perceptron. And all these embedding vectors are concatenated right here, these three, the audio embedding, the diffuse time step embedding, and the diffuse sequence. And then we feed it into the facial decoder. The facial decoder comprises of a number of GRU layers and followed by a fully connected layer. In terms of the vertex-based data set, we can incorporate a subject embedding and a neutral template to get the predicted sequence. But in terms of the lower dimensional data set, the animation data is directly predicted. Okay, I did not miss anything. Okay, let's move on to the inference process. So in inference process, it is an iterative process that starts from capital T here and goes all the way down to 1 in an iterative manner. In this process, a noise becomes coherent animation. At the end, coherent meaning coherent with respect to the condition, which is our audio. So it is to be noted that during inference time, we don't have any ground truth data to noise, right? So what we do here is we sample a noise from a normal distribution, the maximum time step big T, and the audio that produces the first iteration's predicted sequence, x0 naught, that we feed it into the next iteration, and so on and so forth for the subsequent iteration until we get this noisy animation becomes stable and coherent right now, yes. Oh, it's in loop, So let's see some results, and we can discuss about the results after seeing some visual results. Let's see.
Mama just killed a man, put a gun against his head, pulled my trigger, now he's dead.
My father taught me many things here. He taught me in this room.
Yesterday, you wrote me about an email that you had to send to your teacher. Yeah.
What an excellent room you have, sir. Such expensive furnishings. Did I sacrifice every bit of love in this life because I killed our little brother?
Okay. There will be more results in the qualitative analysis, but let's talk about the numbers. So objectively, we evaluated our model. So here the graphs show in terms of the BB dataset on your left and multi-face on your right. So what we used for objective analysis is we used the objective metrics full face vertex error, lib vertex error, and FDD, which is upper face deviation dynamics. So for all these values, we want them to be as low as possible. So here in terms of BW, we can see that FaceDiffuser, our model, outperforms all the other state-of-the-arts in all the, all full face vertex error, lib vertex error, and FDD. In terms of multi-face, FaceDiffuser beats CodeTalker and Voca in all three metrics. In terms with respect to FaceFormer, we beat in terms of the vertex error, but FaceFormer slightly wins in terms of the FDD metric. The user study says something different, so we will discuss about it during the conclusion and discussion. So in the user study of this vertex-based data set, what we've observed is that for BW, just let me say about the perceptual user study. What we did is we did A/B testing. We showed randomly placed side-by-side rendered videos and asked the users on three aspects: to the lip sync, the realism of the animation, and appropriateness with respect to the audio. And they were asked to choose one over the other. So there was no in between. So there's a clear preference of our results over Voca, but for CodeTalker and FaceFormer, yes, they won with respect to the BB data set. With respect to the Voca set, we are on par with the FaceFormer, but CodeTalker has clear preference. And last but not least, the ground truth. When we are comparing with the ground truth data, ground truth was perceived better, which is expected, and it is the same pattern that we see in the literature as well. So in stage 2, we extended our model to work with lower dimensional data sets. So on top, it's the beat data, the results of beat data set. On the bottom, it's the results on the UU-DAM data set. So in this case, we compared with a deterministic model. We compared our model's result with the deterministic model. So the without diffusion model is the one that is identical with our proposed model, but without the diffusion mechanism. So what we found out is that we again used the same metric, but incorporated for the blend shapes or the control values. So we calculated the mean blend shape error, lib blend shape error, and the FDD. So we found out that with diffusion, the errors are higher because with diffusion, we are trying to encourage the randomness, and we are calculating this metrics in terms of the ground truth data. So in terms of facial animation, you can generate acceptable animation given an audio, which might not be the same as the ground truth, but it is still acceptable, right? That was observed in the user study. So we ran another user study comparing diffusion model diffusion model comparing with the non-diffusion model, and we found out that. And we asked again the same questions: realism, lip sync, and appropriateness. And there is a clear preference because it's more than 60% of the users, they preferred the results from the diffusion model over the non-diffusion model. Again, the ground truth was perceived better. So this raises a question. So the objective metrics that we're using for facial animations, are they appropriate for non-deterministic approaches? I don't know. That is an open question that we want to address later on. So I want to show you this set of graphs. These are animation graphs. So this demonstrates the non-determinism of our generated animations with our model. So on your bottom right, it's a facial control that relates to mouth or the lip region. And all the other ones are related to the gaze or eyebrows, so basically the nonverbal part of your face. So here the black plots, the black graphs are the ground truth data, and the colorful plots are the different generation. So what we did, we took one audio and generated using our model multiple times, and we plotted the animation graph. So what we were expecting is that the mouth controls, because it relates to the lip sync, it relates to the audio, it will follow more or less the ground truth data because there needs to be proper lip sync. And the colorful plots of the mouth and lip region, they are more or less following the ground truth data, whereas for eyeball, the eyebrows and the eyelids, those are pretty random, like not necessarily following the ground truth data. We will see some visual, qualitative results related to this in one of the later slides. So now it comes down to the qualitative analysis. For this, we have a clip. And I will not talk about it during the clip because it would be redundant, so let's enjoy the clip.
Mommy. You have no power here.
You better show me. You better show me. Cutting bread with a wire. Yeah, that sounds just... with the heat wire. It's not...
If he's allowed to go free, then something really wrong is going on.
Mr. Kirkland, you are out of order.
You're out of order. You're out of order. The whole trial is out of order. They're out of order. That man, that crazy, depraved man, raped and beat that woman there.
I used to be an adventurer like you until I took an arrow to the knee.
I am being animated using only text as input. The text is synthesized into speech.
I specifically reminded her, bedside table, on the kangaroo. I specifically reminded her, bedside table, on the kangaroo.
Yeah, but what if the part for tomorrow can't be done because you don't have the data and you haven't collected the data for it actually to work right now?
Mãos frias, coração quente.
Zararın neresinden dönülse kârdır.
Wjechał w ten czarny szpaler i ulica staje się ciemna od tego ciągu wozów siejących pył węglowy.
Influența razelor de lună asupra papucilor de gumă.
Aunque se asiente campo contra mí.
Okay, so I want to highlight one of the use cases. So, for example, if you train such speech-driven models on the lower parameterized data sets, so for example, the beat data set that generates the results in AR-Kit blend shape data, you can load it up on any character that is compatible with AR-Kit blend shape data. And then an animator, technical animator can tweak it, until they get the desired results. So for demonstration purpose, we used a piece of audio. We generated the data. We loaded it up on Blender, and for demonstration purposes, we just added a simple sine function to the eyebrows, just to show how easy it is to edit the data once you have some good voice acting to generate the animation data already. So you solve the 90% of the animation workflow. Let's see.
Stuff? Oh, okay. I see. You think this has nothing to do with you. You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater, for instance, because you're trying to tell the world that you take yourself too seriously to care about what you put on your back. But what you don't know is that that sweater is not just blue. It's not turquoise. It's not lapis. It's actually cerulean. Stuff?
Okay, so to conclude, the proposed model, FaceDiffuser, it outperforms the state of the art in multiple vertex-based data sets in terms of objective metrics. We extend our approach for it to work on lower dimensional data sets. Our approach shows potential for non-deterministic generation of facial animations, allowing for greater range of results and diversity. which models the communication that we do as humans. But the limitation lies in the iterative sampling process. And this limitation is subject to the diffusion process because the inference is an iterative process. So the inference time is long and it's not suitable for real-time applications. So to talk a little bit about the future work, like I mentioned, the randomness of facial motion. There is no data set to our knowledge that captures the dynamics of non-determinism of facial animation or facial motion. So what we plan to do is to collect appropriate data set that captures the non-determinism, the dynamics of the non-determinism of facial motion. Why we want to collect that? To be able to explore the data, to understand the pattern of facial motion in terms of non-deterministic approaches so that we can evaluate it and properly evaluate it and then propose better models for generating non-deterministic 3D facial animation. Lastly, emotion categories and intensity control is not addressed with this work. However, the work that we did previously, FaceDiffuser, that addresses the emotion control, but in a binary manner because of the data set that we used in that work. So if this work is interested to you, I would suggest you to also look into our previous paper that was presented last month in ICMI in Paris. The project page has a really entertaining video, and also the code is open source. And if you are, again, still interested, if you are at SIGGRAPH Asia next month in Sydney, drop by to the doctoral consortium program. I will be presenting my PhD topic, which is data-driven expressive 3D facial animation synthesis for digital humans. And look for this yellow poster.
I thought my jokes were bad.
So that concludes my presentation. I invite you to visit our project page. The code is open source. There's a nice demo that you can play with. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.